Hello and welcome to The Print. I am Zanaira Baksh. Very recently, the Supreme Court of India ordered a ban on the segregation of work based on caste inside the Indian prisons. This landmark judgment would not have been possible without a report that was brought to light by Sukanya Shantha, a journalist working with TheWire. Sukanya recently won the prestigious Padma Shri Daya Pawar Memorial Award for her powerful reportage on the caste based segregation inside Indian prisons. Welcome to The Print, Sukanya.
Hi,
Um,
thank you for having me here.
to begin with, can you please tell us a little about when and how did you decide that caste-based discrimination inside the prisons was something that you wanted to report on, and what was the genesis of your idea?
So I've been reporting on the criminal justice system for some time, and in that I've been also looking at prisons very closely. So in 2020, like my colleague and I actually came up with this whole idea of doing a series of stories from prison, focusing on different aspects of prison and keeping human rights at the core of it, like as in like how human rights can actually get violated in different ways. That was our whole idea. So in that we were looking at gender as an issue, as caste as an issue, and different forms of discrimination that could happen to an individual in the prison. Uh, Caste-based discrimination was something because that's a social reality, and that's something that is no individual of this subcontinent can actually say they're untouched by caste across different religion.
Right.
So it wasn't something that we knew like caste would exist in different forms, and we needed to explore that. We wanted to actually like interview people and find more about it. So this series was done in partnership with the Pulitzer Center for Crisis Reporting. So they had actually given us the funds to travel across different parts of the country and report on it. So we
Yeah.
spent some 5 6 months working on this series. It was a 5 part series. When I actually started talking to incarcerated persons, formerly incarcerated persons,
Hmm.
and I was trying to actually get narratives on different forms of caste discrimination that they must have actually come across while they were incarcerated. Uh,
Hmm.
I also thought like it is essential to get a sense of how exactly the rules and the laws of prisons are actually formulated. So in
Hmm.
that process, when I was interviewing people, I was getting a lot of information from them, and alongside, I also started reading the prison manual. That was the first time I actually. So Rajasthan was the first prison manual that I actually got hold of, and then I started reading it very closely, and then I realized that like the caste-based discrimination that these individuals are facing uh, is is also something that is sanctioned by law, by the rule of the state,
Hmm.
and then and prison manual is something that is not easily available. That's something that the whole structure is such that they don't want prisoners to know their rights, and if one were to know their rights, they have to actually have access to the rules and acts, and then they keep that away from the prisoners and their lawyers as much as they can. So getting this prison manual actually took me a lot of time, and then once I started reading it, I realized it's not just Rajasthan, but across the country, length and breadth, has the very clearly caste based labor division or segregation or different kinds of discrimination against the Vimukta community, which is the denotified tribe. So it actually is all mentioned in the prison manual. So that's how I came across how caste actually functions in prisons. Yeah.
Can you please tell our audience a little about like what exactly did you witness during your reporting trips to different parts of the country, and what convinced you to take the matter to the court eventually?
Yeah, so I began my trip from Delhi, and I met this one formerly incarcerated person, a very young person, who was incarcerated, who was kept in prisons of Rajasthan
Okay.
for a period of like some 2 3 months. And while talking to him, and his experience was pretty distressing, as in like this person had he was wrongly implicated in a case of theft by the owner of the workshop where he was working as an electrician.
Oh.
He did not come from Rajasthan. He was from Bihar who had migrated to Delhi, and from Delhi he had migrated to Rajasthan for work, and his experience of caste was very different until that point. It was mostly about migration that is pushed because like that one is pushed to actually take up because of caste, because of maybe say lack of land or lack of resources in their own hometown. So that kind of like the harsh realities of caste is something that he was aware of. But when he came to Rajasthan, the first thing that was asked to him was about his caste identity. And when he's asked about his caste identity, he's unaware of why this information is like actually even gathered. Later, he realizes that that information is gathered purely because they wanted to assign him job as per the caste that he belongs to, and he happens to be from one of the SC castes from Bihar. So uh, then his experience. He speaks about a lot of things. Like he speaks about how in the beginning he thought that maybe he was given this particular kind of labor simply because he was a new young prisoner who's entered the prison space, and that could be like something that is given to prisoners who are entering the space for the first time, who are a newcomer. But slowly he gathers that that's not the case. People who are coming much after him, people who are also first time accused of being first time offenders, are also are not assigned the similar kind of work. So he slowly understands the bitter reality of it, that this assignment happened to simply because he came from a certain caste, which is a scheduled caste from Bihar, and in Rajasthan they were mindlessly only asking you caste and assigning it. He was actually an electrician by profession. He had actually he had the qualification to be an electrician. He was working as one, but inside prison he was asked to like clean toilets, clean septic tanks. So that was the experience that he came across. Then I traveled in different parts. Like from Delhi, I like went to Bihar. I went to Bangalore. I went to parts of Maharashtra. So like I actually traveled to different parts, and the experiences that people actually spoke about, that they themselves have experienced or they have actually witnessed someone else experience that kind of behavior. We did like a whole series of interviews, like 35 odd interviews that were actually done for this story. uh, it was essentially of people coming from the Bahujan caste identities, belonging to the Dalit tribal or OBC caste. But we also made it a point to speak to a lot of people from these Savarna identities, from Brahmin caste or maybe from other upper castes, so-called upper caste. So we realized there is a very stark difference in the kind of experiences that people had. Uh, Prison is a very harsh space, and the harshness, like actually, uh, like one cannot be not impacted by it. But the impact of it is also graded, and the gradation of that impact is so much dependent of the identity that you come from. That is something that we actually understood through the interviews of different people. Uh, while I was working on the story, the beginning of the story was looking at caste discrimination, but eventually we realized that we have to focus on the laws that are actually formulated, and which is very very unconstitutional. As in, like in 2020 is when I did the story, and then like close to like 75 years after the constitution, if you have discrimination that is sanctioned by state, it had to be like actually done away with long ago. But the unconstitutional practice was going on. But besides that, we also found out in say state of Tamil Nadu that the Tamil Nadu prison manual did not actually have something so blatantly casteist, but still there were like a very clear rampant practice of caste-based segregation of prisoners. So in the southern part of Tamil Nadu, which is known for caste-based violence, and there it's like the violence like it's really rampant. In those prisons, the prisoners belonging to different castes were actually segregated in different as per their caste in different barracks. So somebody belonging to say an OBC caste, maybe like a Devar caste or say a Nadar caste, which is an OBC caste but considered to be a little more dominant in that space. Uh, are kept in different barracks, and then people belonging to an SC caste in that space, like say an SC caste would be a Pallar caste or maybe like an Arundhatiyar caste, those were given different barracks. Uh, Not just that much, even the prison officials were actually segregated as per their caste. So for a Tevar caste prison barrack, a person belonging to that caste, like an official belonging to that caste, was assigned. So that was something that needed to be like actually. So we got to know from a couple of people that we interviewed. So we went ahead like actually like looking up a little more, and then that's when I realized that this question was actually picked up by a local human rights defender there.
Hmm.
And there is somebody called C. Arulmani who actually went to the Madurai bench of the Madras High Court and
Hmm.
challenged this. And this was much before I had even like discovered. Like my reading happened of it some I suppose some 8-9 years after it was already challenged in the court.
Hmm.
He goes to the court and he points it out like very very clearly that this discrimination can't happen, and it is unconstitutional. He says like how this practice can't go on, and caste is the reality across different parts of the country. Like as like you will see it pan India. So there is nothing so specific about Tamil Nadu or Tamil Nadu state administration where they are unable to actually handle this.
Hmm.
The state at that moment actually comes ahead and says that yes, we are segregating people. This is because of law and order problem. And if we
Hmm.
don't segregate, we will not be able to handle the violence inside prisons. And hence,
Hmm.
we think that this is how it should be done.
Hmm.
Uh, the Madurai bench actually accepted this. It accepted what the High Court, what the state administration, the state home department had to say,
Okay.
and went ahead passing an order against the petitioner. And the petitioner did not really have the wherewithal, the resources to go and challenge it in the Supreme Court. So it was left there, like his fight ended there. So
Hmm.
I could not get in touch with the petitioner somehow, but I got in touch with his lawyer. The lawyer actually gave me in detail what was exactly the fight, the reasons, the rationale behind it. So I covered that too in the story.
Hmm.
So yeah, like the story covered these two aspects primarily, and
Hmm.
yeah, the aspects that were covered in the story. Yeah.
So, of course, you spoke to me in detail about the things that you saw, but I would like to go a bit deeper in it. I mean, you said you spoke to around 30 to 35 people while you were reporting the story. Can you tell me a little about the instances, different things that you witnessed or, heard from your sources? I mean, of course, segregated barracks is one, and then cleaning toilets is another. What other partial practices were being conducted there? Can you tell me a little about that?
Right. So, so there is one reality which is the mention of caste in prison manual.
Yeah.
So there are like some 13, 14, 15 states which mentions caste.
Hmm.
So there you know like clearly like what you are hitting at. You know like these are the problematic clauses in the prison manual which needs to
Hmm.
be looked at very critically and reported about. But then
Yeah.
there are like some states which don't mention it. Like in the case of Maharashtra, it has one problematic bit about the denotified community, but otherwise it doesn't speak about caste-based labor. Tamil Nadu also doesn't mention caste-based labor practice in their prisons in their prison manual.
Can you
But does
explain a little? What is
it?
caste?
Yeah, so primarily, so when you look at say for example, if I go back and like actually if I were to focus on say like some states like say Rajasthan, MP, West Bengal, so if these state manuals, if I were to speak about, they very categorically identify the scheduled castes of their states. Say for example, in the case of West Bengal,
Hmm.
there is specific mention of the Chandal community in the prison manual, and it says that people belonging to the Chandal community will have to carry out the work of cleaning, sweeping, and other things which are related to hygiene. So, similarly, in the case of Rajasthan and MP, they mention the caste Mehetar. Mehetar is a caste with a scheduled caste from these states. Similarly, in the case of UP, they mention the scheduled caste specific to their state. So, while they mention that the scheduled caste persons are supposed to do these kind of manual work, they also have a mention of the Brahmin caste, which they call a priestly caste, uh, to uh, carry out work like cooking
Yeah.
or carry out work. So in the prison you have under trials and then the convicts. So
Hmm.
both of them have like different sections, like different offices. So there are these offices are usually handled by the jail staff. But alongside, because the jail staff are never enough to actually carry out that humongous work, you also have like a few handful of prisoners who actually get to do that work. So in that space, like how Brahmin caste people can actually do like some work in the offices, like and work and handle the library work. So the clear idea is they have attached like purity with certain kind of occupation, and in like and certain kind of occupation is looked at from a, like as to be impure. Now, regardless of what your qualification is, like in the case of this prisoner that I spoke to from Rajasthan, he definitely had the qualification to handle, say, like an office work. Like he was already he's educated. He was already working as an electrician. He would have definitely like could be assigned that work, but he wasn't. So they are actually looking, and it's funny because they are actually asking somebody from the SC or OBC caste. Like in some cases, I would mention of OBC caste too, as a, like say a barber caste, Naik caste, which is an OBC caste in most states. Even they were assigned the job of only like cutting and shaving. So these guys not necessarily are working as, say, a barber or a sweeper or a cleaner outside, or as a washer person outside, washerman outside. But they were assigned that job in the prison. Similarly, the Brahmins who were actually assigned a certain kind of job, not necessarily they are working as bawarchi or as a chef outside. Maybe in all likelihood, most men, like women, I'm considering like because of the conventional traditional lifestyle that they must have been actually must be used to like leading outside. Maybe like they knew how to cook, but men like might not like know to cook, but they were assigned that kind of job. So this kind of segregation was happening everywhere. Something that I missed out in my story, which we later actually added in my petition, I think I should mention that here, is how the denotified communities are actually treated in the prisons. So denotified tribes, like there are like around 200 tribes which were criminalized in the British times, and uh, like post independence, like eventually like in the 50s, like in 51, like they were actually finally denotified. Denotification happened on paper. That didn't necessarily mean that their lives actually changed. We have enough and more examples across the country where so these communities, the Vimukta communities, the denotified communities, are criminalized, and they end up disproportionately in prison. They're like their representation is like they have like an over representation in prison. So the attitude of the state prison authorities towards them. So now these attitude is one is like a is very social in its approach, but also state sanctioned. So there are mention of like what kind of work can be given to which prisoners. There are some prison manual which specifically says that you can actually in the case of like say open prison, in the case of like some work in the prison office, you can actually have people from like who are educated, who are like first time offenders, a whole series of things. And in that it also says that exclusion, like it speaks about excluding a certain caste. It mentions that some people belonging to wandering tribes or people who are habitual offenders should not be assigned this job. Now, wandering tribes, who are the wandering tribes? Like these are the communities which have not been, where the state has not, or the social structure has not allowed them to actually stabilize or like live in one place. They have had to actually wander because of many different sociological reasons.
Reasons,
So
yeah.
and yeah, and so those communities cannot be given. So it's very blatant. It's very easy. Like it's very clearly mentioned that you cannot actually have this type any jobs like assigned to this community. Habitual offenders, now by the virtue of how the caste structure functions and how these communities have been actually discriminated over like centuries, they end up having multiple cases against them. And this is not and regardless of their involvement in these cases, like you become like an easy prey, like you become like a sitting duck for like for the state to like target you. So then they say then the prison law says that like habitual offenders cannot be assigned this kind of job. There are some prisons where we also have mention of transgender communities. So the whole attitude of othering that happens, and it is just like just very casually mentioned, like of the many things, like okay, we are exempting these people without giving any rationale, like why are you doing this? Because once you give the rationale, then one can actually like argue back and say like the rationale is flawed, but they are just like passing it as a diktat there. Yeah.
Okay, that was the reporting part. Now let's just move to the part where you actually took the matter to the court. I mean, what was your experience like? What happened in the court, and how difficult was it for you specifically as a reporter?
Right. So the story was published in 2020 December,
Hmm.
and my petition was filed in 2023 December, 3 years after the original story was published. Uh,
Hmm.
so I soon after the story was written, in a month's time, somehow the story reached the Jodhpur bench of the Rajasthan High Court,
Yeah.
and it was suo motu taken up by the court, and then they decided to do away with the practice and amend the prison manual for the first time in 75 years, and that happened suo motu. It was not something that I had pushed for. And
Hmm.
then because that actually gave me see, at the end of it, we want these stories, like the violations, when we report, we want somebody to take note of it and fix it. That's the whole idea behind doing these stories. But somehow, when Rajasthan High Court did it, I realized the potential of it. I realized that, okay, fine, if one court is very clearly like looking at it as a problem, then
Hmm.
there is a scope to actually work around it. And
Right.
I knew that I could continue writing, but I had already done like such exhaustive reporting. Whatever I would say, I would be repeating myself. I would be saying, okay, fine, the discrimination is going on in this state, that state, this prison, that prison, but I would not be able to add more to it. So so in the beginning, I was actually hoping different organizations which work on caste, which work on prisons, take it up. And there are like many multiple human rights organizations which are working very closely inside prisons, which have been litigating, which have been actually like petitioning different high courts and supreme courts, and they have the manpower, they have the resources, they have the wherewithal to do this. Uh,
Hmm.
Somehow that didn't work. That was an expectation that I was having, that okay, now as a reporter I've done my job, and now someone else takes it up because they're better equipped to handle that.
Hmm.
That did not actually materialize. So
Hmm.
meanwhile, my lawyer, Disha Wadekar, and so she and I actually would discuss these issues very closely, and she's also somebody who's very very invested in the whole anti-caste understanding of different issues, and so we were just like thinking of how exactly can we continue engaging with this issue, so that
Hmm.
some change can be brought. And Rajasthan has done that. Rajasthan has actually already shown us that this change is ought to be brought.
Right.
So in the beginning, we just thought maybe we could actually write, we could write letters to different high courts. But then we
Hmm.
realized, like, how many letters do we write? And these letters can't be like just like some 3 4 paras. One will have to do like extensive research. So if we are doing extensive research for individual states like that, you might as well now convert it into a petition. Is what we finally just like thought, like maybe like we can actually like end up making a petition out of it. I was very reluctant about filing the petition under my name. I just felt that like it would be better that, because we also, like, as journalists, we are a little unsure of whether like we should be getting involved in this kind of activism. So somehow I was not very sure about doing that.
Yeah.
So when I went on like actually revisiting each of these persons that who had helped me write the story. Some of them still have pending cases. Some of them still feel that they will be easily targeted if they speak up and talk about the experiences that they have had in different prisons. So their vulnerability was so much higher that I realized that, okay, fine, that's not happening. Organizations are unwilling to actually engage with something so serious, so problematic. But so when organizations were not coming ahead, and when you don't really have prisoners feeling that kind of confidence of coming ahead and like and becoming the petitioner, then we just had this back and forth with the lawyers, and we just realized that, okay, this issue needs to be taken up. We have all our research in place. This issue needs to be taken up, and already Rajasthan High Court has shown us that, like, if once we take this issue up, there can be change that can be brought in here. So let
Hmm.
us just fight it, and then that's how very reluctantly in the beginning, like, I just decided to become a petitioner. I
Right.
was yeah, I was a little lucky when it came to the team of lawyers. Disha is somebody, like, so all my lawyers were pro bono. Like, none of them actually charged me any money, and
Hmm.
uh, Disha played like a very important role in ensuring that the special petition actually is like the form that it was in. It was like large part of work I had already done as a part of my reporting, but
Hmm.
a lot of more research that needed to be done. She and she had a team of juniors and interns. Like we all together we worked on that, and then
Hmm.
we went to we got S. As the AOR of the case and advocate on record of the case, and then senior counsel Muralidhar sir, he was just more than willing to actually appear pro bono in this case. So yeah, I just I think things fell apart, fell in place once we had a good case in hand. Yeah.
Hmm. And finally, I want to ask you, I mean, based on your experiences as a reporter and the impact that you've been able to create with your story, what would you like to say about the caste system that is currently prevalent in India, and what needs to be? I mean, now the ban has been, the order has been passed, and a ban has been put in place. What needs to be done further to stop this completely?
Right. So, see, constitutionally, caste-based discrimination, untouchability has been abolished many years ago. Like we're talking about, since our constitution is in place, like it has been abolished. But has that changed things on ground? No, it hasn't. It
Hmm.
caste is a reality that we are dealing with even today. So,
Hmm.
one one I would be I would be naive if I say that with this order, like things would actually change on
Hmm.
ground. So change will take. It's a very slow, cumbersome, very excruciatingly painful process.
Yeah.
So at least right now, what we have is that one can no more hide behind the garb that this is by law that the practice is going on. Like it
Hmm.
will have to be stopped, and one can actually hold the state accountable if the practice continues. Like Rajasthan got rid of those aspects from the prison manual, but that
Hmm.
didn't mean that the Rajasthan prisons have overnight become very it decasted itself, and like it's become
Hmm.
this place where everybody is actually treated at par with each other.
Hmm.
In like similarly, like in Maharashtra, you don't have these practices mentioned, but you still
Hmm.
have the like Sadhvi Pragya Singh when she goes to prison
Hmm.
officials allotting like people to work around her as per
Yeah.
their caste. So these practices are continuing and will continue, and one will have to keep constantly repeatedly reporting about it and bringing it out, just the way that we talk about the caste based practices that is happening in our universities, in our cities, in our villages. The same
Hmm.
way we'll have to actually keep reporting about it from inside prison too, to just ensure that we are holding the state responsible, accountable for continuing with the practice. Yeah.
All right, Sukanya, it was really insightful. Thank you so much for giving us your time. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. Thank you.